Okay, so for my final stage of bearing replacement, I will be replacing the engine bearings, the main bearings, in my 3.3. So we'll carry on step by step. Okay, so the engine has been removed. Looks like it needs a little bit of cleaning here, but I've got the Traxxas 3.3 engine, the powerhouse. So here's the fully disassembled pieces. So what I want to show you is some of you wondering how the telemetry works. Well, this is an RPM sensor, and it goes off of a little magnet that has been installed on my flywheel, and that magnet is right there. So each revolution counts as a pulse, and then it picks up and sends it to my receiver transmitter. This is the grounding wire to my glow plug. This right here is the temperature loop. It goes around the head of the engine, and of course inside this little box is a GPS module that gets my real-time speed. So next I'm going to start stripping and cleaning up my engine. The engine now has been removed from the car. I've taken all the fasteners out of it, so the cooling head, you can see the glow plug needs a little servicing there. I've also removed the carburetor. The carburetor, in case you don't know how to do it, you loosen this bolt right here, or this nut right here, and it loosens off a little bit of a cam. If you look inside here, it's a can that slides in, and that's what pulls it tight. That holds it side. It puts like a side force on the body here. So once I remove that and that, I've also removed the back plate, and you can see that this O-ring is being chewed up pretty good. This O-ring will be replaced. The O-ring in here in the carb is also kind of chewed up. So fortunately, there is an engine rebuild kit, part number 5247, that works for the 3.3. You can see all the O-rings and such that go with this engine. So as you take it apart, you will destroy O-rings. It's a good idea to have them on hand to put it all back together. We definitely don't want any air leaks or gaps when we go to put our new bearings in. I have now removed all the pieces here of the engine, the sleeve, the piston. I can now remove the main crank. The bearings have now, these are the bearings that we'll be replacing. The inner bearing here, as well as the outer bearing. We'll be using the heat method. I'll be heating this up to 320 degrees and taking these bearings out and then replacing them with the new Boca bearings. We'll go through that step in a moment. The bearings have now been removed. I used just a stove, and I put a thermometer in the stove. I made sure that it wasn't above 220 degrees Fahrenheit. What I did was I put the whole engine block with the bearings in the oven, and then I gave it a good smack. You'll notice the background is white. This is a piece of board that I got from the garage, and I just smacked the inner bearing out. You can see the inner bearing, there's really not much of a seal left there, so I couldn't imagine that this provides any type of a seal. This one here didn't have an inner seal, which I'll be putting on using the Bocas. So this now is ready to go. Like I said, I just looked up YouTube. I searched Boca bearing, engine bearing replacement, and there was a nice method showing a hot plate method. So I'm about to warm this engine block up now to 220 degrees, slip the front bearing in, and then I'm going to slip the rear bearing in with the main crank. So that's my next step. Okay, the bearings have now been replaced. I replaced my engine bearings. See the front bearing and the main bearing. You'll notice that I removed the seals, the orange seals on this side of the engine. This is the exhaust port. I've also done it to the same side on the front bearing. So this side of the bearing no longer has a seal, neither does the main bearing from this side. If you look at it, it was placed in nice and evenly. There's no score marks. I chose the heating method because I didn't want to pull the bearings and create any type of scoring. Mechanically, that just eventually wears the seat. So this one here was heated at 220 degrees Fahrenheit, and the bearings were placed using the main shaft. And if you're wondering how that was done, just search Boca engine bearing replacements. So everything is seated properly and is ready to go. I've already tried the bearing and it spins much differently. So there's a lot different mechanics going on there using the ceramic bearings. We'll see. So next I'll start assembling the engine. Alright, so that's the engine. Both bearings have been replaced. I've remounted it. I've cleaned a few things here with my ultrasonic cleaner, and I have my main bearing replaced, and I have my front bearing replaced, and it's ready to go. You see, there's plenty of suction. There's plenty of compression. I can feel it. It's really strong. So I'm expecting a lot here. So we'll see what happens.
Hey,